Okay, we are recording.
Okay, we're now recording. I welcome each of you to the meeting. David, I'm presuming you're Gelman?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome.
I hate surprises, so thank you for telling me. Okay, so let's start here. Someday I'll learn how to do this better.
There you go.
You're doing good.
You're doing it.
Okay, so what is this?
That's gonna remove itself.
Okay, if I don't touch. Welcome to the December meeting of the Community Board's Law, Rules, and Ethics Committee meeting. And we have a quorum present. It took attendance.
Here's attendance.
Oh, here's the sheet. I'm here. Steve is here, Sylvia's here, Kelly's here, Rosemary's here, and Chuck is not. Okay, this is the agenda for tonight. I must admit that when I began putting together the agenda, began thinking about putting the agenda together, I thought we'd have a very weak agenda, and then things started piling in. So I hope we get out of here before tomorrow night's meeting. Having said that, I just want to correct one thing or not. Kelly, you have 2 F's in your last name or 1 F?
2 L's and 1 F.
Where'd the L go?
Kelly.
Ellie.
No, the last name.
And my first name is incorrect up there.
Oh.
So that's why I said I have 2 L's and 1 F.
Well, at least I'm consistent. Okay. So, just for the record, let's correct that. Doesn't want to be corrected. What happened?
Go all the way up.
Why did it jump? And 1 F. Okay. Approval of the minutes of October 29th. I believe you have copies in front of you, and I have it on the screen here too. Any corrections, any comments on the minutes? They couldn't be bad at all because Steve took them. And so, is there a motion?
Second.
Kelly makes a motion, Rosemary seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sylvia, I can't see you. Are you
Yes.
approving the minutes? Okay, unanimous. So going down to topics at hand, Chair's report. History of CBA awards. We'll come back to this. Last week, Wednesday, was the executive committee meeting, and I had a number of items to share with the executive on this issue. I used as an example the Veterans Award because I don't understand the Veterans Award. We honor the original Community Service Award was defined as being someone who did something for the community. With all due respect to the veterans who I admire and appreciate their work, I don't know how we, in this room or any room, judges one veteran over another veteran. What did one do? What did one not do? What is rank important? Number of medals important? Or should we be honoring someone who besides being a veteran, has also contributed to the life of the community? I raise this, and I'll raise it again, and depending upon what we decide later on, I will raise it tomorrow night. So that's our executive session.
Now, wait, so are we gonna discuss that issue later in this agenda, or
Yes.
this, okay, sorry, thank you.
Executive sessions, I raise this because I was informed that an unnamed committee, and the little I know about this, the better, and an unnamed committee decided, some suggest based on Robert's rules, they decided, poof, we're going into executive session to discuss some issue between two of the committee members. Everybody out, we have to talk executive session. I raised with the executive committee, reminding them that such executive session is inappropriate, cannot be done in that method. Under the open meetings law, there is a process, and I gave myself as an example when Bob Bender was chair of the search committee for the district manager. I helped him put together a blurb on the top of the public notice that this meeting, because of its nature, would be executive session. I was challenged on that. I contacted COG or COOG or whatever, and they informed me that I was incorrect, that the process is you must open a public meeting, you must either have an advance or place on the agenda going into executive session, and during the public meeting, vote to go into executive session. My logic that by nature of this meeting, we didn't want outsiders in, didn't hold any weight with them. So just a reminder, all committee chairs, that you cannot go into executive session spontaneously unless place it on the agenda, place a vote, and then vote. That's not what happened. They just went into executive session.
Marty, I'm sorry, this not to be a stickler, I'm just trying to follow, you had the expanded agenda. I don't know where D came from. We were just talking about returning to the idea that we would return later to the idea of the awards.
Right.
But I don't know where that came, I just don't remember that being in the agenda. Not that you can't raise it, I just want to know where we're at.
Part of
I
his
think
chair's
I
report.
sent out a note that I added 2 items.
Chair's
Oh,
report.
I just looked at the cover sheet. I just printed the cover sheet, okay.
So I'm going to remind the board tomorrow night
Okay.
about this.
Let me just, can you, there it is, okay. Your letters don't exactly line up, okay, so H is the one I was looking for. If I could add to this discussion, the number of opinions from, the Albany organization, I should almost be paid for all of them that I read, I'm telling you. And on exactly this issue. It should be clear to everybody. There are, if you look at that list, there are, to me, 2 possibilities, maybe 3 possibilities. That's it. You cannot go into an executive session for other than, I believe, 2, but maybe 3 possibilities. That's it. And when you go into executive session, you make a motion for the body, the committee, or to go into executive session for, and you have to say, section 105F, blah, you have to state the reason that you're going into executive session before the vote.
Correct.
So therefore, it is absolutely clear, to me, it's D, E, or F, that's it. That is the only 3 possibilities for us to go into exec.
Well,
and so, look, it's fallen by the wayside, but, you know, you get too tired saying the same thing over and over again.
What about H, Rosemary, I'm sorry.
What is H?
Sale of lease.
H, that's it. Did I say F? I want real estate. Okay, well, F used to be real estate. Are you sure? Okay, sorry. So it's H, that's
This
it.
is cut
That's
and
it.
paste from the law.
Okay, that's it. It's lawsuit, which is, we've never gone into executive session over a lawsuit. The medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, which has tons of opinions associated with it, tons of opinions. We have been saying we're going in for personnel reasons. You are not allowed to say you're going to executive session for personnel reasons. Not allowed. You have to be going in for the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person. This is, okay, and then it's real estate. I thought that was F. Okay, so it's 8, real estate. And we've gone on to executive session because of the lease for the office, what's upcoming and everything. So that's it. Cannot go into executive session unless the particular absolute 105 whatever we're going into for.
Just
Okay,
Just note on your table here, Julie sent this, and this is from the Guide to Parliamentary Procedure for New York City Community Boards, and the last page lists 4 ways for us to go into executive session. But I gave you the expanded view from the state, none of which, not none, but most of which we never even put in.
what's the 4th reason?
You have copies right here. Matters that will imperil the public safety. Any matter which may disclose the identity of law enforcement, inform information relating to current or future investigation or prosecution, discussion regarding proposed, pending, or future litigation. And I assume in this broad definition, litigation refers to real estate. We're not suing anybody, we're negotiating.
That could be somebody could be suing us. Didn't we have this before years ago? I wasn't on the board. Did we not have a developer sue the board for different positions we took vis-a-vis their applications? Were we not?
Don't recall.
Okay. Once again, I'm not going to mention names, but you do. Okay.
The separate cover, I'll try and figure out who you're talking about. Anyhow, the issue at us right now is, you cannot spontaneously go into executive session. But there's a process, a procedure, and there must be, as Rosemary has pointed out, there must be a specific reason for going in as announced and as appropriate based upon this chart, based upon the law. So the action that was taken place by this particular committee was inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I'm just to give them a heads up. Although the appropriate group was the chairpersons, but I want to say it to all the board members too. Item E, subcommittee versus working groups. I don't know if Sergio is suddenly hot on this issue. This is emailed to me, in which he included, and we'll go over it shortly, what the bylaws actually say. Since that, I wrote back to him. I don't know if
Marty, was this something that happened a few weeks ago, or is this something that that Sergio pursued weeks later? Because I remember when it came up at the meeting. Okay.
At the meeting, he raised it. 2-3 days later, he sent out,
Right.
I don't know, this email, or there's a second email he sent last week to remind me.
Oh, okay, so, okay.
Because I told him then in my letter that I would bring it up here,
Oh, okay.
but frankly, I'd forgotten.
So had I.
So when he saw my agenda go out and didn't see it, he sent me a reminder. That's the letter, I think I shared it with you, all of you, and you probably have the responses from Steve, and you probably have the response from Julie.
Can I see what I said?
No.
Please.
You sent it to Cecilia.
No, but I want, because I've just made a proposal for this evening, and I hope it's not inconsistent.
Scroll down.
Scroll down. Can't even look at it. I still don't know what the issue is.
Oh, good.
No, I don't, I don't, I
No,
don't.
he said, oh, good, he realized. I read it, and it's exactly what I'm proposing tonight.
Oh, okay, well, okay.
And Julie's response and Chuck's response. Now,
I remember that.
this, I didn't see all afternoon. I saw it whenever I left to come here, and my iPad.
I have a few hard copies if other people.
Well, that'd be great, 'cause I can't, I haven't seen it at all, 'cause my phone doesn't pick up. Thank you.
Do you want one, or are you gonna look at the screen?
And, okay, you're gonna continue with this because,
Sorry.
okay, I still don't understand the issue. I really need somebody, there's no sense correcting something that isn't broken, okay? What are we trying to fix here?
My response to Sergio was, this specifically talks about the board. It doesn't talk about subcommittees of committees. And therefore, I didn't think any change had to be made.
It does.
So, in Chuck's response, he wrote that we've been doing subcommittees forever. I don't know where Sergio, I have no reference to where Sergio picked up that subcommittee was a dirty word and working committees were fine. I have no reference to look to find. So I put it on the agenda now to talk about. Now let Steve go first.
Well, at the time, as my email at that time, maybe just to Marty, I can't remember, reflected, when we went back to the Article 6, Section 5, sure enough, in the beginning of it, it talks about a standing committee establishing a subcommittee and getting the board to vote on that. No matter what our practice had been in order to get our work done, it did say that. And so my conclusion was, it's really a lot about terminology, but as a practical matter, if you want the bylaws to reflect what we're doing, common practice for years and years and years, we ought to change it.
Could you point out what you just said?
Sure. So if my red line was correct, and everything is still in there, I didn't delete things unnecessarily, it should say, or upon the recommendation of a committee, may establish such subcommittees as it shall deem advisable, which says two things. One is, there is a concept of a committee setting up a subcommittee, but only, according to these bylaws, if that committee, or standing committee, I think is implied, recommends to the board that a subcommittee be established. And so that's something which certainly is consistent with what Sergio was saying, and it is at odds with what we have been doing as a practical matter to get our work done. And so that creates an ambiguity about whether there is such a thing as a subcommittee that doesn't get board approval.
I draw you to the first sentence. I draw you to the first sentence that I wrote to Sergio. Jousting with lawyers, we appear to speak the same language. We often disagree on definitions.
I just looked at the language and I tried to be fair about it.
And I'm a layman, I have no law, not a single law, well, I do have some law courses, educational law. Strikes me that the board may establish a subcommittee upon the recommendation of a standing committee. This says nothing about what a standing committee can or cannot do.
You're being a lawyer now, and you're technically correct, but it certainly suggests that there should be a procedure for a committee to ask the board to establish a subcommittee. That's how I read it. I think it's confusing, and I think it should be fixed in the way that I suggest to make it crystal clear.
I'm gonna call Kelly, but just want one clarification. You're suggesting that when Chuck established, I've been now on 2 subcommittees, when he wants to establish, he has to go to the board to get a vote of the board?
If we were to obey the way the bylaws are currently written, which I think are poorly drafted, no offense to anyone, in that one respect, if I think it should be cleaned up, because I think that the people who've been doing the work understand that establishing subcommittees, even if we sometimes call them working groups, has been a very effective way to get things done and should not require the bureaucracy of having a board vote each time a committee wants to establish a subcommittee. Look, I don't feel strongly. I was just trying to make peace.
Kelly?
I'm gonna
You just said what I
explode.
was getting ready to ask, because to me, it seems counterproductive around here. That means that the community board would never get, the standing committees, for all intents and purposes, would never get anything accomplished, because the working group or subcommittee, whatever we want to call it, can't act until the full board approves it. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
I agree, that's why I want to change the bylaws so there
So
can.
I don't, but is there a separate section in the bylaws that speaks solely to standing committees?
Yes,
Is there something in there that we can perhaps modify to make it a little more plain?
you can modify anything you
I
want.
don't wanna
Do
modify.
what?
I
What's
don't
the
wanna-
problem?
No, I don't
What's the
think,
problem?
I personally don't think there's a problem.
I
think
agree.
by changing it in any way, shape, or form, it sort of ties the hands of the committee whose primary focus is to serve as the liaison between government and
The community
And
and
the
get the
community,
work
what
of the
needs
committee
to be
done.
done,
I
right.
agree.
I'm unclear as to how that last sentence doesn't make it quite clear.
Okay, but,
Forget about whether it's necessary for a second, Rosemary.
okay, I
Kelly,
can't.
just to ask you, see that last sentence? This was a paragraph which I believe was intended to take care of a very special animal, which is a special committee, which is something that lives only for the year unless renewed, okay? So what I did was I suggest making it just about that and putting at the end of it and killing any reference to subcommittee in there. And then at the end, nothing in this section shall restrict the standing committee of the board from establishing a subcommittee thereof where necessary to accomplish the work of such standing committee, and no resolution of the board shall be required to establish any such subcommittee. That makes it, at least in my view, there are many ways to word it, but it makes it very clear that no one's getting in the way of what the board does to get its work done.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay, I tell you,
Don't leave, but-
there is absolutely nothing wrong with our bylaws. They are perfect. I absolutely love them. They are perfect. That's why I keep asking, what is the issue? And don't answer me now. I keep tripping over that. What is the issue? And I think it may be Webster's Dictionary. Subcommittee, special committee, task force, working group. We're tripping over definitions and trying to find a solution by changing the bylaws to deal with a Webster Dictionary bullshit. It is infuriating to me. Now, the bylaws are clear. You can do a special committee. We're clear on that. We've done it. We have 3 special committees. They were done appropriately. Right?
No question.
No question, they were done absolutely appropriately with, the membership was there, it went twice, it went, exactly what they would do, and at the end of every year, we renew, or maybe at some point, don't renew. Clear. Subcommittees, we haven't done a subcommittee. That is what the problem is. Please go to the city council is the land use committee and 2 subcommittees. The 2 subcommittees are part of the committee. That's the definition of a subcommittee. A subcommittee is part and parcel of that committee. Special committees are separate. They're separate. You see our 3 special committees. They exist outside of the structure of the standing committees. A subcommittee exists inside the structure of the committees. Okay, now, there are community boards that have subcommittees. And one was proposed, and, well, I'm gonna name the committee, it never happened, but a natural kind of subcommittee of a committee on the community board would be land use and subcommittee housing. It was falling apart, it wasn't working, it was, one of the thoughts was, housing could be a subcommittee of the land use committee. Everybody that's on the subcommittee is part of the land use committee, but they exist and have their meetings and bring their work back to the committee. That's a subcommittee. Look at community boards across the city. There are subcommittees. Look at the city council. There are subcommittees. That's what a subcommittee is. We're tripping across the fact we don't have subcommittees because even when it's proposed, we have never entertained it. It doesn't mean that there can't be a subcommittee. I can think of I hate naming, but there are examples of committees that could actually create a subcommittee. It's a very serious thing to create a subcommittee. You're setting up a new entity with new rules and new advertising and new everything, but they cannot, like a subcommittee on the city council, City of Yes, they voted, but it had to go to the committee. It had no effect whatsoever until the committee that they were a subcommittee of accepted what their resolution was. Okay? So let me just please. I got to get this off my chest. Okay? So we special committees, we understand. Subcommittees, it belongs in here because we may want to do a subcommittee in a committee. We haven't done it yet. Now we talk about, okay, the work of, I like your work, like the committees have to do their work. Okay, I call them fact-finding. I call them a whole list. Steve, you were on a number.
But land use doesn't do that. Land use calls them subcommittees. They always.
That's what it's so. Take Webster's dictionary and throw it out and believe what the real truth of the subcommittee is. It's a working group. Thank you. And the committees have a right. I believe have an obligation to turn to their membership and say, okay, we have an issue here. Let's take the issue. Do you remember SNAD? You were it was you, me, Bob Bender, and Fanuzzi. And we would go out, we busted our ass. The amount of work that we did.
Was that not set up by the board?
No, it was set up by the Land Use Committee. Okay, and I'm not finished, okay? And we went, and I'm sorry, this is me, okay? Have we been introduced? Okay, so we spent hours with city plan, and what do? We came up with 4 separate reports back to the Land Use Committee. And the Land Use Committee got our 4 separate, this is what we've learned. Here are our concerns, here's what we learned, everything. And I remember I had discussions with you guys, and there was a belief that we should take a position on things. I said, no. We're fact-finding, we're going to deliver to the Land Use Committee, they're the ones who make the decision. We did that. There was, and you were on this other committee, Friends of Community Board 8. Maria Curie, you, me, Phil Friedman. Okay, it was the chair of the board said, go out, fact find. What do other community boards do? How do they do it? What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Do a report and bring it to the board. There was no vote of the board to create us to do this study. The chair of the board has a right to say, go out and go do fact-finding, go bring back some information to me. When I became chair of this board, I set up for the first time, because I'm not going to mention a name, but a community board member was at our throats. We're not doing social media, we're not this, we're behind the times. I said, that's it, I've had it. I had Paul Ellis, I said, who is my vice chair, he pulled together people on the board who understood social media. Roz Avaris, Dan, Myra, there you go. And you're,
3 for 3.
Okay, you guys did a tremendous amount and came up with a report, and we came to certain conclusions. This is what committees, the chair of the board has a right to do this and should do it, and every committee has a right to take its members and say, go out, fact find, tell me, and come back to the committee so we can make a choice. This is a Webster's Dictionary issue, and I absolutely, totally refuse to believe that it's just a subcommittee. Stop with the subcommittee. Subcommittee belongs there. And I'll tell you what a subcommittee could be and should be, and we have in the past attempted, and it was turned down. That's okay. But it exists there for a reason. Look at Congress, look at the City Council, look at other community boards in the city. There are subcommittees, okay? This is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And I will be damned if I vote for anything that will tie the hands of a committee who says we need to take,
I'll take traffic, for example.
okay.
Okay, I'll use traffic. So one of the big issues with TNT is Step Street.
There you
needs to
go.
be
Bingo.
repaired all the time, right?
Bingo.
It is not the chair's sole responsibility to go around and look at all the step streets within the area, right? So you establish a working group, and it could, as simple in this instance, be as simple as everybody that's on the committee look to your geographic area and you come back and you report what's done. And then for budgeting purposes, since we have to include this on the budget, we look at the information that was provided and then we do it that way. That's a working group.
Exactly, to help the committee.
Make a decision.
Exactly.
No one's disagreeing. I mean,
Okay, now-
all of that conversation was, no one disagrees. That's how committees work. And not just committees, because I don't care what the city council does. That's how we work and always have worked, as I know. It's just a question of whether Sergio has pointed up some inconsistency between the bylaws and the way we've been operating. I understand, Rosemary, that you're referring to a subcommittee as something which has a life beyond a year, but is an established part of a committee.
Which we haven't done.
Recognition. Right, but it also it doesn't fit the idea that it sunsets in a year. So it's really not the same thing, but I don't want to get into an argument or a debate about that, because I don't think it's important. We do work a certain way, and whether you call it a working group or not, the fact of the matter is, in most recent memory, land use has designated subcommittees to work on particular issues. They have not called them working groups. That particular committee doesn't call it a working group. And just for posterity, since these are recorded, I don't know who created that special committee on SNAD, which I served on and spent hundreds of hours. However, I don't ever remember providing my draft resolutions and the like, or our draft resolutions to land use. I remember them
We didn't do
directly to the board. They sure did.
We did not do resolutions, we did reports. Interim
We did
report
reports,
number
you're right,
one.
exactly.
Interim report number one. Interim
But it
report
was to the
number.
board, just so you.
We went to the land use, sorry, it went to the land use committee. I never would have allowed it to go to the board.
Okay.
I never would have allowed,
Anyway, but that's-
for interim
That's a
report.
footnote. That was my
But
recollection.
it's more than land use. It's more than land use. Exactly what you're talking about with the step streets, telling members, okay, the first committee that did this was the Parks Committee. And Bob Bender came up with an entire questionnaire and handed out the questionnaire and assigned everybody on the committee had certain parks and fill in, and it was extensive, the amount of work that had to be done for everybody. He ran out of members, and I remember I forget, I was on another committee, I was vice chair or something. I took 2 parks just to help him out, okay? That's a working group. That's a task force. I don't care what you call it. It's not a subcommittee. It's work that is essential. Parks Committee, TNT, the chair of the board, okay? Did the Friends of Community Board 8. I did the social media one, okay? The chair of the board has a right to do it. Every standing committee has a right to do this and should do it to bring the work of that committee forward. Okay,
I think this injects needless.
There are 2 questions. Question number 1 is purely semantic. And that is, if it's called a subcommittee, it's called a working group, whatever it's called, are we going to change bylaws because of that? And question number 2 is, do we have a history that says from now on, such groups are called working groups? I'm not aware of it.
just to say to people, next time you put a group together, call it a task force.
Well,
I don't
we know
care.
what our history is, and we know what we do to get things done. I think there's no reason to spend another 10 seconds talking about it.
Thank you.
It's never been disagreed with, not even in the email correspondence that Marty reprinted. No one's disagreeing with that. The only question is, I was trying to, hear what Sergio had to say and go back to the bylaws, and it wouldn't be a terrible thing, maybe not necessary, to say that, the chair of the board or any committee chair can set up a working group or fact-finding. You don't need to say fact-finding, just, a working group or a subcommittee to address specific
Not a
issues.
subcommittee. Get rid of that word. Subcommittee is specific in here.
If there's.
I did get rid of it.
But then you.
I crossed it out 5 times.
But then you put it back in the.
Right, to avoid, that's what people do, to avoid.
Called out, right, I understand that, right? But instead of, perhaps, if we insist, I don't think we need a revision to the bylaws, but if we insist, it should say there is nothing in this section that shall restrict a standing committee of the board from establishing a working group. That's what I think.
Okay, but then everyone has to like never use the word subcommittee.
But it will take, like everything else.
People do.
I understand, but a lot of the things that people say too is because of habit, right? And it's because of in their day-to-day vernacular, and we all have to recognize that we're all part of this community board as volunteers, and we all have day jobs, right? Or we retired from day jobs, right? And the jargon that you use in that profession is what you bring over. And sometimes, even though we understand that it's a working group, we use the wrong word, and then there are some people who take it very literal, and that's what I seem to think has happened here, is that they're taking the
Yeah,
word
I know. I
subcommittee
agree.
very literal.
Right.
And to remove all doubt, just say 2 committees, right? Committee chairs, when you establish groups, they are not subcommittees, they are working groups, to get the business of the committee done.
Right.
That's
Period.
right.
That's it. I don't think it needs to be anything more than that, quite frankly. It's just a matter of, it's like, we all now use the internet, right? 20 years ago, some people resisted. Then the pandemic happened, and now everybody's using the internet for everything, right? It just takes time.
You know, Kelly, I'll even go further. The history of this community board, before I was on the community board, there was, for instance, the Brad Trebeck Committee to study changing, should there be fewer committees, change committees, everything? What? A group got together, the chair of the board said, put people together, they did a report.
Right.
It's a history on the board of not only standing committees, but chairs, okay? Who was the chair when the Friends of Community Board 8 was that Damien? That put us, I think it was Damien.
It was one after Damien.
After Damien would have been Fanuzzi, but Fanuzzi wouldn't have put himself on the committee. Oh, maybe Fanuzzi wasn't on that committee.
We met in Maria's house a couple.
So it's, exactly, you remember. But the chair, it's more than the standing committees. The chair of the board has a right to pull people together and do
I
that.
participated in virtually every one you.
Everyone that I mentioned.
We all said,
Debating history, we know that.
said we've discussed it too far, too long.
I don't think
I wanna-
it's too long. I think it's
I
a
wanna
good
bring it to a
discussion, but anyway.
Are we, when I report tomorrow, do I say, recommend from now on, it's working groups, end of discussion, or continue with our precedent, whatever we call it, it is.
I think it's okay to urge
We're fine.
chairs and committee chairs to, when they establish working groups, to call them working groups. I think that's good advice.
And continue doing it.
No, there's no,
What of your committee?
I don't think anybody well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what people's motivations are.
Right.
But I think that would be a good idea. I personally think, now or at some future time, a clarification along these lines would be a good idea. Partly because what you're essentially telling me, or what I think I gleaned from this, is that there is no usefulness to the concept of a subcommittee in this community board, and then that's just kind of a red herring, but.
Okay, and I, with all due respect, disagree. When you do bylaws, it's the Constitution, to allow it to happen, that it's a possibility it could happen, should exist. And there can be a situation on this community board where there's a crying need for a subcommittee.
Right.
There's how you do it.
Let's say I agree
Okay.
with you about that, because you make a good point. The fact is, the way this paragraph is written, It never returns to using the word special committee and constantly refers to subcommittee. It is extremely confusing for that reason, because it talks about our practice of having special committees that sunset unless they're voted again, and it doesn't refer to special committee. It refers to subcommittee, and so it's very confusing, and it should be fixed.
And yet we have, pure examples on this community board of 3 special committees
No, it's not
done
that we're not
correctly,
doing it.
so where's the confusion? I don't get the
People
confusion.
who are concerned about accurate reflections in charters and the like, want them to be accurate, and that's all I'm saying.
But you do see a difference between a special committee and a subcommittee.
I do, I could lecture you about it for hours.
There you go.
I don't need you to tell me. I'm just saying, the way that's written.
I wasn't telling you, I was asking you a question, you
It doesn't
understand there is.
refer to it keeps referring to subcommittee when it means special committee, and that's why,
I'm gonna end this.
that's why I made the
I'm gonna end this
suggestion.
discussion Now,
Before you
I will
end,
recommend
Kelly has
working
something to say.
committees, hold on, recommend working committees, but if
Working groups.
but if someone says subcommittee, the sky's not gonna fall.
That's already true.
Kelly, I'll give you the closing comment.
to Steve's point that he just made, if the intent of the revision is to specifically say special committees, I'm okay with that. But if it's about the subcommittees, I'm not okay with it. But I'm okay with what you said also. It's not double speak, it's just clarifying a point, right? So if we want to put this this change before the board, that we can review it again after everyone has calmed down a bit. And we can look at it, but I don't think it's something that we need to address tomorrow. You need to address tomorrow during the meeting. I think just saying, reminding the chairs, right, that when they establish groups of individuals within the respective committees to do the work of the committee, it is a working group. It is not a subcommittee of the.
Well, I would just tell you in closing that I cannot change the name of the subcommittee on Van Cortlandt Village, the working group, because we have too much stationery printed.
That was a mistake.
But,
It was a mistake.
when Chuck is here, you can tell him.
Glad to.
Postmortem on community board award criteria.
Okay, can I, just one final point,
I thought we finalized already.
on this issue, yes, but things that we do that are not in the bylaws, that just, and this is for the future, but you know that we have a history of, like many things in history, working group history of, a history of, somebody runs for a board chair 3 times and that's it. It's not in the bylaws. It's what we've practiced and what we've held up to. But there's nothing that requires that somebody step aside after 3 terms.
And there are 2 examples where they haven't.
Okay, well, once again, that's suggesting that's just, here's another thing that is practice and, not in the bylaws.
Postmortem of community board of criteria, vote was 15 in favor, 8 opposed, 10 abstentions. As I reported, well, I didn't report this part. I've had some conversations, and the first item suggests why people abstained was my concern. What I reported to the board is, for years, I have been terribly distressed over the concept of abstentions winning the vote. People should come to a meeting knowledgeable of what's being brought up. They receive the resolutions in advance of the meeting. If there are questions, they should raise them to whomever they think would provide them with the information, but they should not be coming prepared to abstain. Now, it was suggested to me that by my agreeing to the amendment that night, I gave the impression that the resolution was not properly and fully thought out. Some were upset with some of the wording. Most appeared to be unfamiliar with the history and therefore didn't know, didn't vote. and a couple you're aware of who think it's a case of over legislation. Don't tell them what to do. Now, if that would be changed in the month since, well, tomorrow night will be a month. I don't know if that's the case or not, for that reason. So, the issue here is I offered this amendment, which was turned down. I am withdrawing that for a particular reason, which I will express shortly. I shouldn't have agreed to it, and I should have expressed why I shouldn't have agreed to it. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So, this is what the resolution was. Now, we have, I say, 6 options. Reintroduce the resolution as amended. I'm rejecting that. Rewrite and amend the resolution on our own. Repropose the resolution exactly as is, either tomorrow or in January. Just drop the issue. Wait until, and then 6, I'll go back to 5, 6, suggested alternative. Interestingly, on number 5, one of the 3 committee chairpersons involved suggested a private meeting where the chairpersons would work this out somehow. That would include Julie and me and the 3 chairpersons. A second chairperson agreed. I thought it was a good idea. Apparently, Julie does not. And as a result, there will not be such a committee as of yet. So we have these 6 options. I'm not asking for you to select one yet, but I propose a alternative resolution, which Steve worked on, and I've taken out the extra stuff and only left in the changes that...
Is this it that we're looking at now?
Changes that Steve suggested.
One of my suggestions was to keep the suggested dates, months, whatever, out of the resolution, just because some people might
I
see
didn't
it
get to
as...
that yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just felt that some people might think that was micromanaging, so I just suggested
The
taking.
reason I want to drop the, and I expressed this without wanting to drop it, I suggested this to the executive committee, that when we first established the Community Service Award, this was decided as people to improve the quality of life in this community. For the example I used quite extensively on Wednesday night was the the Veterans Award. I don't understand the Veterans Award. Are we going to honor someone because they were a veteran? End of discussion. Well, why this veteran and not that veteran? Why are we going to give it based upon rank? Are we going to give it based upon length of service? We give it based upon their military experience, their theater of operation, whatever. I don't think we have that authority or that right to nitpick what one person did in the military versus another. And if we're not focused on our community, then why are we giving out these awards at all? So I believe that should be the overriding reason for giving out these awards. But I wanted to clean up a lot of the language so it was less burdensome. So you look at what my suggestions and Steve's suggestions, ready to discuss any of it.
Artie, can you print that out just for future reference?
I gave it to you. It's the second thing on that page.
Oh, it's right there. It's on, oh,
Well, if
good,
you can't
thank you.
see that, then you certainly
There you go. Okay.
So, I've said to Marty before, and again, sometimes I can't recall what's just a communication between me and Marty or between the very small committee that we have here. But I feel like there was confusion engendered at the last full board meeting on this issue. It was unfortunate. I think this was completely salutary, but I think sometimes you just have to you know, move on, and I think that, and I totally get why Marty would like this to be, you know, the community board's word on the subject, and that's why I, you know, made some small suggestions, because I think it's a fine resolution in that form. But I think maybe the better thing is to just leave this alone for now, and when it's time for the various committees to do what they do, you know, make them toe the line. Have the chair of the board, you know, tell them, you know, if you're gonna do this, you gotta have this. That's, I mean, that's just, you know, let it happen organically, in other words. But I don't feel strongly, I just think those are two choices, two alternatives, and coming back right away, I think you're gonna get more, people directing, misleading people about it for whatever reasons and making it into a thing about.
You're 100% correct on the timing. It is not the time to do anything. Having said that, I do have a question, right? There are 4 committees.
Boards, sort of.
4 wards, yes, sorry. Not subcommittees or anything, there you go. The Irving Latimer Award, the requirements for that exist, and nothing that happened at the board changes that at all, okay? They are the gold standard, as far as I'm concerned, about what the criteria should be. Now, there are 3 other committees, right?
Right.
Now, I think the timing is off to come back at the next meeting, and because it will seem like a challenge. It's not, okay, it's like a, oh yeah, you did that. It's gonna feel, it's gonna have a feel to it. It's certainly not the intention, but it could have a feel to it. To me, this is an issue that I don't know why we're dealing with this. I don't know why Law, Rules, and Ethics is dealing with this. It was, the original thought was a command to each of the committees, come up in your committees with suggested criteria, and then come and we discuss it. There's a board or executive committee or whatever. That never happened. So it wound up in our lap because the committees didn't do what they were requested to do. Again, I don't think we should be doing this. I don't think it should be our job to do it. And I think maybe, not that it's a mistake, but we stepped into something that you heard the opposition. There was a lot of, you can't tell us what to do. No, the committees know what to do, not what, okay, there's that sensitivity to a committee ownership of the award, or a committee ownership of then own the criteria.
I mean, the thing about it that was unfortunate is that the resolution didn't try to impose a specific criteria.
Exactly.
It just said you ought to decide what the criteria are.
Exactly, and I put that language in at the tail end.
It was, you know, again, it's only the community board, it's not Congress. I think it was appropriate to suggest a structure. And I think that's all the original resolution did, and I think that's all this resolution does. But because it then became bound up in this abstention business, which was accurate but unfortunate, I think it's kind of like developed a little life of its own. That's
All right, I have one last comment, and I'll call on Julie, then David. My last comment is, with respect to this, I am still embarrassed and don't want it to happen again, what took place last year.
Yes.
And to the degree that I caused it in any way, I'm still embarrassed, and doubly embarrassed. Last year.
At the St. Stephen's Church, do you remember that?
When people got up and said, they get the award? No way.
Oh, that, yeah.
That's horrible and terrible. So therefore, my suggestion, whether I bring it up tomorrow or not, my suggestion is that once a criteria is in place, and we know why a person was selected based on that criteria, then we have no reason to have a public discussion of the honoree. So if someone comes in, we're gonna honor John Doe for this award, and we have no idea what criteria, then people are gonna question and challenge. But if we have criteria and we know what they were, then when they say John Doe deserves the award,
There you go.
we're satisfied, and there's no need for that, a repetition of that nonsense. Julie? Julie?
Somebody muted or anything? Is that,
On mute.
does she know that?
Julie, are you still there?
Can you
David?
hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Now you can?
Yes.
Mark, okay, sorry about that. I don't know how to use this phone on Zoom. But, I just wanted to say that, I did respond to, the email asking if the committees can meet, and I let the chairs of those committees, I reminded them because they were asked at the beginning of the term, and the past chairs of the said committees were asked last term to just draw up a criteria for the committee, like let them do their own criteria so that we can have criteria for each committee. I didn't think that it was fair to bring all committees together. I just told them, just do the basic work. Give us your criteria, write up a resolution for your committee so we could bring it to the board. I believe the Economic Development Committee put it on their agenda to discuss, and the Youth Committee mentioned that they would discuss. And I told them it's pretty much administrative if it's coming from the board to set up the criteria. And I gave them the information that the Irving Latimer, how they came to the board with an idea, they wrote a resolution, they brought it to the board, simple. You know, and that's the reason why I told them that I didn't want to meet with them. Just do the job, bring it to the board. And I explained that I asked the Law, Rules, and Ethics to take up the position this year since it wasn't handled last term. It's something that's purely administrative that we just need to get together and close. So hopefully, at least I know the youth and the Economic Development Committee responded, and they said that they will follow up with it. And I gave them the information that the prior chairs of that committee gave when I asked the prior chairs last term to please let's look into this, write up resolutions, get the criteria together. It's administrative. It's so simple. I don't even see why it's just not even done by now. So hopefully it will be completed within the next month or two, and we can bring it to the board.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And
David?
I thank the committee for even taking up that responsibility because it just wasn't done in the past, and I thank you all.
Thank you. David?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree. The criteria need to be in place before the season begins, so to speak, for them. They need to be established and agreed upon by at least the executive committee, if not the whole board. But the other element of it is, I think that as a rule, the board should be setting guardrails, such as no self-nomination, no commercial promotion, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need to get in, the board as a whole doesn't need to get into the details of the criteria, but those parameters I think are important.
Thank you.
One way, I'm sorry. One way to do that, I suppose, is that when criteria are presented for each of the 2 or 3 committees for a board vote, which I think should be voted, I mean, even though we may not have this resolution, someone feels that's not there and should be, like self-nomination. I don't think that's written in the Code of Hammurabi, but if it's a good idea, someone can recommend that as an amendment, hopefully a friendly amendment, maybe.
And so I agree and disagree with Sergio. Veterans were paid as soldiers. I don't think we should be honoring them for their service. We should be honoring them for their community service subsequent to having been a veteran. Looking at me like
No, I'm processing. I'm not looking at you anyway, I'm just looking.
again, I said it before, I have no idea how we.
I don't know what many of the criteria are around.
I don't think you have to get hung up on whether you should or shouldn't have amended. I agree, it was all in the moment. And if we're not gonna put this, I don't think you owe anyone an explanation. It's passed, it's done. It was voted down, done.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
marching orders
so I have my
from
marching
the
orders
chairs.
tomorrow. Makes it easier for me.
Which means it's not gonna be discussed, right?
Right.
Well, a new resolution won't be presented.
A new resolution will be presented, it will be discussed. Now, the other issue associated with this resolution, and at least with one person, I seem to have created a brouhaha. I don't understand why, but, no, that's not.
Are we on number 5? Is that what we're up to?
We're at number
Number
6.
5 is the
I
easy
skipped
one.
5.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
For number 5, which is really also directed to Julie and the board and Artie, the way that it was worded was, for me, problematic. This became a legend on all of our meeting announcements or agendas. And so I felt that the additional red words there would make it more accurate. And so that's my suggestion. The way that it had been worded, it said, just like it's self-effectuating, like anyone could just make a decision on their own.
Julie has her hand raised.
Julie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
How do you put your hand down? Because I don't have my hand up on the phone.
I should
Oh,
already
can you put it down?
It's the same as putting it up. I think it's
Yeah.
star
Do it
6.
again. No, you click it again, yeah.
She's on her, she called in.
Oh, so
It's down now, thanks, Julie.
Do you want to say something, though?
You're on mute.
it's very hard to follow this when you're remote.
Okay, it's reason for ECU. So, does anyone have a problem with this, change in wording?
No, I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, that's the committee. I'm gonna ask the non-committee member, do you have any problem with it changing? Okay, so unanimously we agree.
Sylvia?
Sylvia,
Yes,
you have a concern with this new wording?
it looks good to me.
Fine, so it's unanimous, and I thank the committee members for reminding me to call on Sylvia. Glad you had input. Okay, discussion. My second concern with the, what do you call it, the, vote on the resolution is I hate and have hated for years the fact that abstentions can win. The argument still is that, I included here 4 items that Steve offered to me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when we first discussed this. So it has nothing to do with this resolution. It was a concern for abstentions, and Steve, where he researched it from, these are 4 reasons why people might abstain. Now, the first 2 certainly are of concern. One is they've not paid attention, don't know what the resolution is all about, and therefore, duh is better than taking a vote. That's abdication of responsibility. Member who wishes to avoid publicly casting a yes or a no on a controversial issue, that's why you were appointed to the community board. So this should not be your reason for abstaining. Member feels the vote is on a close question, prefer not to take a decision, yes or no, another unacceptable reason. And then back to 4, insufficient information. That person should be doing some research prior to the meeting. Call someone, ask someone. Having said all of that, I put out, yes. Kelly?
Marty, just I have to correct, I was actually suggesting that 4 would be an appropriate time to abstain, that there are situations where that could occur. One solution to it at a meeting is to say, I suggest that we table the question, or that another parliamentary procedure that comes to the same thing, which is to lay it over. So that's not always possible. there are ULURP requirements with deadlines, so it's not always possible, but 4 is, I think, not an indication that a member has necessarily abdicated their responsibilities.
On the other hand, you have abdicated, because if you have insufficient information, you haven't done your homework.
That's not
Sometimes
true.
things are added to the agenda.
Sometimes things are added to the agenda, number one. Number two is sometimes things are on the agenda, but the committee is given information late, and they can't make a decision. For example, someone's application coming before one of the standing committees. If the meeting is at 7 o'clock in the evening, and the committee receives the material that they're supposed to review for that particular matter at 3 p.m., to me, that doesn't give the committee member enough time to digest that information.
I agree with that premise. I have no difficulty. However, sometimes, whether it's the fault of the person submitting the application, or it could even be the fault of the book committee itself, which hasn't processed it and should have, if there's a time limit, and we either lose our opportunity to speak or prevent an establishment from doing its business, then we may need to feel an obligation. We have to do something.
Okay, but in that instance, though, the individuals on the committee can feel strongly. I always use myself as the example, right? I have a meeting at 7 o'clock for the community board. I work sometimes until 6:30. I am not reading anything that comes in from the community board during the day, right? I read my materials the day before. So if I get something and I'm expected to vote on it that day of the meeting, chances are I haven't digested it. And so I am not going to vote on it because I haven't really looked at the information.
There's new stuff.
There's new stuff, right? So,
These were just off the top of my head. We've had this conversation before. We had a conversation in this committee over the last 2 years, at some point, about whether it would be appropriate to actually ask, to ask people who are abstaining, what's the reason for that? Separate from conflicts, which was to be the present but ineligible to vote, used to be called abstention for cause. And we decided that that was impractical and just not something we wanted to do. That being said, I would be supportive of issuing some sort of exhortation to members maybe once a year, saying you've sought appointment to the community board, it's your responsibility to pay attention, to be up on things, to read what's necessary to read prior to a meeting, and to take a position, yay or nay on a question. That doesn't mean there will never be instances in which you will feel you must abstain, but they should not be for reasons of lack of attention, preparation, or not wanting to take a position publicly.
And the exhortation that you hope for should especially be for new members, especially for, and I think it applies for, it should be for every community board member, but especially the new members. Here, resolutions go, Artie, am I right? Resolutions that are going to be before the community board go out to every community board member prior to the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so every board member reads that resolution. Okay. Number two, if they read the resolution and say, I don't know what this is, I need to understand more, they can go to YouTube and go to the committee where it was fully discussed. The pros, the cons, the ups, the downs. The YouTube committee is there to listen to educate yourself. And then, if you're still in distress, you can call the community board or the chair of that committee. There are how many ways that you can educate yourself as to what the purpose, the ups, the downs, the pluses, the minuses of a resolution are. Many. And there's nothing wrong, and I think community board members should be told. I mean, how many more ways does one have to educate themselves on a resolution? We have many. So, and you're talking, 30 minutes before totally understand that, but.
Right. I
On the
mean,
other
which is
hand-
also why, you know, because people say, oh, we need to get the materials out. you know,
Absolutely.
Early, so people
On
can.
the other hand, had we agreed half hour ago to rewrite the resolution and submit it tomorrow night, party wouldn't have gotten it until tomorrow morning and wouldn't have sent it out.
We
If anyone had a
didn't.
chance to
Yet another, by the way, yet another reason not to put it up
Exactly,
for the board.
exactly.
Okay, so I copied, I don't know how I came across it all of a sudden, but back in January of 2016 was one of the times we had this discussion. And,
Extraordinary how old I am.
I remember.
I don't remember how I got to this article, but Lester Steinman wrote an article in the New York State Bar Association in which he used the words that if a board member abstains without a cause, not without cause, present ineligible to vote, was an abdication of responsibility. And therefore, I wrote to Alex Kipp, you all met, and Alex, I asked him, what rights do we have to question an abstention? And he said, Zippo. So, I wrote this, I sent the entire, I asked the office to send out the entire memo from 2016, which I know they did, and I had a cover letter on it.
As in the last few days, or a week or so.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanna, for the home
And
lane.
as you will find the memo I distributed back in 2016, my issue then and now is I hate it when abstentions win the vote. And so this is what I wrote. And I received, I didn't put it in here, probably for good reason. One board member decided to respond on the same email, the same distribution list. So she asked everyone, he challenged my assertions. So I repeat my assertions, I've said it over and over again. I am not suggesting preventing anyone, because I have no right to do so, from abstaining. You have that right. However, just think a little bit more closely as to why you're abstaining. And if you're abstaining for cause, that's another issue. Abstaining for cause of abstention, present, ineligible to vote, is different than abstaining. And the big difference is that you need a majority of those present and voting. Someone who abstains for cause is not eligible to vote and therefore doesn't count in the final count. And so if there were, what I see, 10 abstentions, there were
10 abstentions, 8 opposition.
I have further up, okay. 10 abstentions, and 2 of them would have taken more than that. If 5 of them had abstained for cause, the resolution would have passed. Now, I was challenged on the difference between Robert's rules and the city charter. I have said this for years, I've been saying this. No one's ever questioned it. In fact, when I attended the sessions conducted by the Commission on Commission on, it'll come to me, that ran a number of parliamentary procedure sessions for community board members. I wrote him several times challenging the fact that he kept talking about Robert's rules when city charter doesn't allow for that. Robert's rules, I'll say it again, the resolution before us. I vote in favor. The chair says, all those in favor, please say aye. I do that. All those opposed, say aye. Nobody raises their hand. Script does not ask for abstentions. Those are the votes. So if I voted yes and nobody else voted, the resolution passes under Robert's rules. It does not pass at all, or even come close, under the city charter. The city charter, it's majority of those present and voting. So I made this point several times over the years. And now this individual is looking for the exact quote from Robert's Rules, which says abstentions don't count. I sent her something, but didn't satisfy her. So having said all of that, I'm done with this subject unless someone has anything else they want to add.
I just think at the end of any exhortation, I love that word. I really do, Steve. The last exhortation has to be abstention. If you look in Webster's dictionary, oh, I'm Switzerland, okay? No, you're not. You voted no, okay? That's the issue. There's no such thing as an abstention. You voted no. You may have dressed it up with a different word, but you voted no. And I think that's an important distinction that people have to understand.
Under the city charter.
Right.
Under Robert's Rules, you are Switzerland. You didn't vote.
So I don't know if the next board meeting tomorrow is the time to bring it up or not, to reiterate what you've really said many times, or to just let the issue sit for now. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Similar issue. Because there's only one person who reacted that way, and I think, honestly, I tried, I read it 5 times, and I couldn't. I just wasn't sure what the issue was. So I'm not sure that you're reorganizing it in a way.
Well, at the moment, I was told that person I would raise it, have a public opportunity to raise a real question. We'll see. We shall see. And I'm gonna roll right through. You have the latest that came out of the Conflict of Interest Board. I love a lot of these, especially the phrase, and now former X, Y, or Z. But I find a lot of these with people with high positions do such stupid things. Director of Customer Service, Unit of New York Department of Finance. I gotta believe that's a high position. Hopefully someone had some brains, but took out loans from subordinates. And I found this particularly interesting because I was looking for an obituary in the Times, and I came across January 5th, Tony Alvarado had passed away. I don't know if you remember the name Tony Alvarado, but he was chancellor of New York City Public Schools and was forced to resign because he took loans from a subordinate. There was also something else about taking special ed kids out to Long Island to wash his car or whatever else, but that was not in the obit. Okay. What? Okay, New York City spreadsheet, I just pointed out that by a vote of 31 to 20, actually, it's not, that number 31 and 20 is not in the spreadsheet, but I'm giving you extra information. To me, that's a fairly close vote. This was not unanimous, as the mayor would have wanted it. And they are, according to Laura, who's up on this subject, a lawsuit is being filed, I think, out of Staten Island, that, I forget what article it's being filed under. This is not good for the city, and we'll see what happens with that. But I'm sure they're prepared to move forward. Okay, any old business, any new business? There being none?
No, just what it's for the future, but remember, we talked maybe a little late about the Charter Revision Commission that the mayor set up, right? Okay, well, now, the city council has set up one. So I don't know if the members have been chosen or anything, but we have a lot of advance notice on this one now. So whenever they have hearings, I'm sure, Artie, you'll figure out when the city council's charter revision commission meets, they'll have an agenda. At least we'll know what's on their mind, what subjects are on their mind ahead of time.
I didn't do my full homework. The state resolution passed, and I think 4 out of 5 of the mayor's resolutions
Mhm.
passed. I don't know what the 5th one was. I didn't do my homework. Put my hands and said that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, having said all of that, I'm going to wish you all a happy holiday
Yes, you
and
too.
a good, healthy new year, and save the first.
I'm just gonna stop the share.
Okay.
And our next meeting is, when's our?
Hi, Mary Ellen, I didn't know you were there.
I am here. Thank you for acknowledging.
Or something.
Enjoy your
Very
meetings.
well.
It's on the bottom of the agenda. January 13th.
I do that every month now. Becomes a shorter list every month.
It's good, by the way, it's really responsible to do that.
Yes,
I have a motion to adjourn?
yes.
Second. Okay, moved by Kelly, seconded by Steve. And any abstentions? All those who want to stay overnight are welcome to do so. In this case, abstentions count.